All right, guys. So let's start with the discussion, guys. What is equity research, first of all? What is our understanding of the equity research? All right. So equity research, as the word suggests, is the equity which is our public stock. Here we are talking about the public stock and we are talking about its research. So we are talking about the analysis of a public stock, right? So equity research involves the analysis of a public company and finding out its value and recommending whether to invest in it, not to invest in it, or buy, sell, or hold, right? So here we are talking about analyzing a public company and maybe finally deciding whether to invest or not, or whether to give a buy, sell, or hold recommendation. So that is like the brief definition of equity research. But obviously the doing this thing takes a lot of effort. There are a lot of steps, procedures involved in finally coming to this conclusion of whether to invest in it or not, whether to give a buy, sell, or hold recommendation. All right. So next thing is who does the equity research? All right, guys, who does it? What do you think? Does a retail investor, a common man who is going to invest, let's say 10,000 rupees, or who is going to buy 10 or 12 shares of a company, is that person going to invest in the equity research? Is that person going to do equity research? The answer would most probably be no. That person would not go through that effort, that time, energy. He will not invest that much time and energy to go through the whole process of equity research. So who does it? It is done by the institutions, guys. It's done by the institutions or the firms who are dealing with a lot of money or who are doing the advisory businesses. So guys, there are two types of firms. First is our sell side firms, and the other one is buy side firms. So these are the two types of firms who do equity research. Sell side firms are those firms who themselves are not investing, who themselves are not buying or selling the assets. They are trying to sell the assets. They are trying to sell the marketing material. All right. For example, your broker companies, your commercial banks, investment banks, or your financial advisory firms. All these are the different kinds of sell side firms who are just into publishing the equity research report and selling them. All right. Now they may sell it for free or they may sell it for a particular charge. Their revenue model is either they will earn through this advisory business of advising what to buy, what to sell through these research reports, or if they are not earning through this, they will have an internal understanding with the client that whoever uses their equity research report will trade through them. So they will be able to generate brokerage from the trades the client is going to do. So maybe the client is not paying for the equity research report, but using that equity research report, the trade which the client is going to do will be through this broker, and that broker will be able to generate the brokerage. Right. So same can be with the banks. They are also providing advisory services. So they may charge for the advisory service, or they may charge for the platform they are providing for the trades. Similarly, in case of investment banks, guys, they provide the services in terms of consultancy for the various M&A and IPO deals. Right. So they can also be doing the equity research part to analyze whether to help out the clients, what should be the value of the other company. If you want to acquire it, how much you have to pay. So to give that advisory or recommendation for the client, they will also perform the analysis of the public companies. And finally, we have the financial advisory firms. Obviously, their main business is regarding the advisory. So they will publish, they will analyze the companies and publish the reports. And their business model will be to advise the clients on what to buy and sell, and the client will pay for that advice. So that is their advisory service. So guys, the crux of the thing is that in case of sell side firms, they are not buying or selling the assets themselves. They are into the advisory business. They are selling the marketing material. Whereas if we look at the buy side firms, these types of firms have actual money from the client to invest. So they are into buying or selling of assets. They are actually involved into buying or selling of assets. So if we are talking about equity research here, let's talk about public stocks. Assets can be different also, but let's focus our discussion on public stocks for now. So they are into buying and selling of public stocks. Right. Now, because they are buying and selling public stocks, they need to analyze, first of all, what to buy or what to sell. So they are also going to do equity research, but their aim is different. They want to know what to buy or sell. Whereas in case of sell side firms, their aim was different. Their aim was to recommend what to recommend to the client. Right. So both of these types of firms are going to do equity research. Aim is different. Finally, what they are doing is they are going to find the value of a company, value of a public company. They will finally, based on the value of the company they find out, they will recommend whether to buy, sell or not, hold. They will actually buy, sell or hold. Right. And some of the buy side firms would be our mutual funds, which are pooling the money of the investors and investing or selling the assets. It can be our insurance companies which have a lot of premium coming in and they want to invest those surplus cash flows. We can also have pension plans here, right? And the asset of the wealth management companies, which comes mutual fund is part of which, right? So we can have pension plans, insurance companies, and mutual funds as our examples of buy side. So that would mean that if we are able to do equity research, we are going to be eligible for sell side firm job prospects as well as buy side firms job prospects, because both of these kind of firms are into equity research. Their aims are different, but they are both doing it. They will, both of these types of firms will have the equity research team in them, division in them, who will be doing the equity research part. Right, guys? Okay. So guys, we have understood what is equity research and who does it. But see, we are talking about public companies. So if we are talking about public companies, then we cannot ignore stock market. It is all being done in the stock market, right? So in stock market, there are many participants. What is the aim of every participant? What is the aim of every participant? Why somebody in the stock market working in the stock? See, the obvious answer is profits, but how are they achieving the profit? They are just trying to do one thing. They are just trying to do one thing, that is to predict the stock price. That is to predict the stock. Am I right? Only one thing is the aim of anybody who enters the stock market. Obviously profit. Profit ke liye, what they do, they predict the stock price. If they feel it will go up, they will buy. If they feel it will go down, they may be short sell or sell. Okay, depending on whether they hold the asset or not. Now, okay, so we want to achieve this thing. We want to predict the stock price. How can we do it? How can we do it, guys? There are two types of approaches. First is fundamental approach. And the second one is technical approach. Okay, so we have two approaches to predict the stock price: fundamental approach and technical approach. Fundamental approach is based on the fundamentals, that is looking at the business. There are multiple things which we can look inside a business. Okay, here we are trying to analyze the business, industry, economy in which the company operates, how it is positioned, what is the feedback of the customers, what is the dealer check saying, what is the promoter quality, what is the growth rate they have shown in past. So we are trying to look at multiple things of the company. That is, we are trying to analyze the business. Whereas in technical approach, how are we predicting the stock price? We are just predicting the stock price based on the historical price and volume data. We are just using the historical price and volume data to predict the stock price. See, the aim is same. Our ultimate goal is to predict the stock price. But how are we predicting the stock price? Either by looking at the business or by just looking at the historical price and volume data. And these are given different names. One is fundamental approach and one is technical approach. So what happens in technical approach is looking at historical price and volume data. So we'll look at how the stock price has moved and what has been the volume. Correct. So this is my price and volume data, and based on that, I'll say whether it will go up or down. I'm here right now. I want to predict the stock price. Looking at the pattern, looking at the trend, I'm just predicting whether it will go up or down as per my technical analysis. Right. I don't even know the name of the company. Even if I don't know that, forget about the business. If I just look at the chart and predict the stock price movement, I can do that through technical approach. I don't need to worry about whether this company makes biscuits or whether it makes cars. Doesn't matter to me. My analysis is not dependent upon the business. My analysis is based on the historical price and volume data. So that is technical approach. If you see the news channels on the during the market hours, you will see a lot of technical analysts looking at the charts and giving their predictions. So guys, now the chart can change very quickly, right? So what happens is that their recommendation can also change very quickly. Right now, the chart might be signaling it will go up, but we never know. The chart can just change its direction also, and it signals going down also. Right, so it might happen that the technical analyst is giving a buy call on the stock today, and on the same stock today is giving the sell call tomorrow, because the chart pattern has changed, and that is his reference for giving the recommendation. So guys, this technical analysis looking at price and volume data, this is for very short term in nature. This is for very short term, maybe for a day, for a week maximum. Whereas the fundamental approach is looking at the business. It is analyzing how the bank is placed among the industry or among its peers. How will the business look 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line? What things it is doing right, what things it is doing wrong, how will it impact in the long term? So here I am not trying to predict the price for next day or next week. Here I am looking at the long term. So this is a long term in nature. And guys, there is a name given to it. Fundamental approach is known as investing, whereas trading based on the technical analysis is known as trading, guys. ठीक है, इंट्राडे ट्रेडिंग या ट्रेडिंग बोल सकते हो in general, whereas investing means we are taking a bet for a long term, maybe 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 years down the line. Right, guys, I hope the difference is clear. Guys, feel free to chip in. If you respond, it will help me in getting more understanding of how you are able to get it or not. So guys, feel free to chip in with any questions or doubts you have.
So far, any doubts? Anyone? You all have access to mic as well. So in case you don't want to type, you can use the mic. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next section. So we have a question.
Yeah.
That's by Rohit Kohli. He's asking that which is the good approach?
Okay.
Technical or fundamental?
Okay, good question. See, what has been observed, what history is telling us, is that 99% of the people trading in the market don't make money. Okay, whereas 10 to 15% of the people who are investing do make money. Right. See, as such, both of them are difficult. Let me be very frank. In stock market, it is not easy, especially in case of market like India, where there are n number of corporate governance issues. All right, so the business might look very attractive from outside. All the commentary is very positive, optimistic. The business outlook is very optimistic. Everything seems rosy. So you will think investing is easy. But 1 month, 6 months down the line, you realize that the promoter is just diverging some funds. Or maybe not the promoter is fine, but there is a new regulation. Especially in case of developing countries, these things can happen. Right, new regulation aa gayi, tax se related, yeah, there is some reform by the government which is going to significantly impact the industry. That would mean that all of your thesis goes for a toss. Right. So even if all the steps you have taken while doing the fundamental analysis are correct, still it can turn out to be wrong. And guys, there are so many steps in fundamental approach. I mean, if I start listing down, the space would be less. There are 100 things you can look while analyzing a business. So obviously not easy, correct? And trading looks easy. चार्ट है, ठीक है, यहाँ पे सपोर्ट लेता है. Here it takes support, so I expect it to bounce back. Here it shows resistance, so from here I'll expect it to correct. Seems easy, but not at all easy. You never know when the chart will just change the direction, right? And in trading, what you are doing is you are just playing for that 1 or 2%, correct? So if I am talking about 850 right here, my price is 850 right here, and I'm thinking about it going up, I'll not bet on it for all the recovery. I'll just bet on it कि ये यहाँ से ऊपर जाने वाला है, and I'll go with the next 2%. Then I'll sell it, and I'll put a stop loss here. So anyways, you are not gaining much, and few of the times your stop loss will be hit. It will not go up, it will go down. So there you will lose 1% maybe, right? And if I look at this trade-off, remove tax, brokerage, and other charges you are going to incur with the transaction, after taking out these things also, what is left? Hardly anything, right? So making money through this mode is also not easy. Now, coming to your question, which is a better approach? I'll say it depends on the person. In the sense, personally, like person like me, I like to do fundamental analysis. I like to analyze the company. So for me, this is the easier part. Whereas if you ask somebody else, technical analysis might be his. Might be a piece of cake for him, right? So no clear answer. If any approach would have been better or easy, everybody would have been doing it. Other approach would not have been there, right? Okay, so I
think Rohit has messaged again saying that we can move on. He understands.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
All right, guys. So we talked about fundamental versus technical approach. Now, guys, coming back to our main topic, equity research, where do you think this will fit in? This is a part of fundamental research. Okay? Here we are trying to analyze the business. We are not looking at the price volume data. So equity research is a part of fundamental approach, right? So here we'll analyze the business and find out its value. And then if it is a buy side firm, then it will decide whether to invest or not. And if it is a sell side firm, which is done this equity research, it will recommend whether to buy, sell, or hold. Right? But it comes under fundamental approach. Now, depending upon the type of firm which is doing this, their aim, their objective of doing it is different. Now, coming to the value, guys. What is the value of a company? Guys, I'm trying to make you comfortable with the different terms. You might have heard about them, but just trying to be more detailed so that we are conceptually perfectly clear. what is the value of a company? Any guesses, guys? Anything from your side will be helpful. Okay. Okay. So let me continue. See, guys.
Siddhe is saying net worth of the company.
All right. Net worth. That's a good estimate. What else? Anything else? Okay, that's a guess. Let's see.
Rohit is saying it's book value of the company.
Book value.
Aditya is saying that how much the company is worth by looking at its financials.
Okay, that's good. Guys, we are talking about different things here, so you understand the book value and the worth are different things. Okay, so thank you guys for chipping in. Let me just explain it. See, guys, when we are talking about the value of a company, we are talking about there are three measures of value of a company. Okay, all these are telling us about the value of a company, but from different perspectives. First is the book value of a company. This is what one of the answers we got, net worth. So book value of the company is the value as per the books or as per the financial statements of the company, books of the company, records of the company. So we have balance sheet. In the balance sheet, we have assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity. Right? Shareholders' equity is nothing but assets minus the other liabilities. So guys, this shareholders' equity is nothing but the claim of the shareholders, the worth of the shareholders. So what is the value they have accrued through the company? That is the value of the company as per the books. Right? So this is our net worth या net assets भी बोल देते हैं इनको. As per the books, the value of the company, what the company owns and what the company owes. If we subtract these two, what is left is the worth of the company. Right? So this is the book value of the company. It is one of the measures. Isko agar if we divide by number of shares, then what we'll get is the book value per share. So this is one measure of the value. The other measure of the value is, guys, market value. So here we are not talking about book. Here we are talking about the value of a company from the perspective of market. As per the market, consider it as stock market. As per the stock market, what is the value of a company? Right? So we see that, for example, in case of India, on NSE and BSE, the prices are reflected for all the public stocks. They keep on changing during the market hours. So this is nothing but what the market thinks the value of the company is per share. All right. So this might be book value per share might be significantly different from the market value per share. See, guys, if I ask you, what is the problem with the book value per share? Do you think it is a good estimate? See, that is the value as per books. But the problem with the book is that some of my assets, for example, my land, My land is there at historical cost. It might be bought at 10 lakhs. So in the balance sheet, it is reflecting 10 lakhs, but right now it might be worth 1 crore. Right? So my balance sheet is not showing the true value of the assets. It is undermining the value of the assets. So shareholders' equity will also be undermined. So the book value will reduce, plus other limitations of balance sheet also. For example, it doesn't reflect the strategy or the skill set of the management. It doesn't reflect the growth prospects of the company. It doesn't reflect the value of the brand of the company. It doesn't reflect the customer loyalty towards that company. It doesn't represent how motivated, how skilled, how trained the employees are. All these are different assets of the company in some way or the other, but they are not getting reflected in the balance sheet. So that means my assets shown on the balance sheet are grossly undervaluing the true value of the company. They are not giving me a true picture. So that's why shareholders' equity is also not giving me a true picture. My actual value should be much more than what is reflected by the book value, and that is captured by market value. Market participants are aware of all these facts. What are the growth prospects? What is the trust on the management? How will they be able to take care of the bad times and run the company? All these things manage stock market participants as a whole do know about it. So that gets reflected in the market price. So those limitations do get priced into the markets. So that is a better estimate. But it is also not a correct estimate. Why? What is the problem with market value?
So we have a very nice point here
Yeah.
from Arvind. So Arvind is saying that book value can both be overvalued and undervalued depending on the accuracy of the accounts and mark to market.
Yes, it is absolutely right. That's a good point, guys. So in real life also, you will see that for some companies, not much, but for some companies, the market value is actually lower than the book value. For example, some banks will trade at 0.6 times book value. In that case, what is happening is the market participants don't believe on the value of the assets they are showing, or they don't trust that management will be able to utilize the assets properly and extract the value out of them. That can also be the case, but that is a relatively lower case. It means there is serious doubt on the management integrity. So I'll not say it is a general case, but in some cases, 1, 2, 3, 4% of the companies will have that issue, and it might be more prevalent in case of developing economies rather than developed economies. So that is correct. Otherwise, as we discussed, there are very many limitations of the book value. So mostly it reflects the undervalued status. Mostly you will see that the market value is more than the book value per share. Okay, what are the limitations of market value, guys? Any guesses? Can I consider market value as the true value of a company? Is it giving me a true picture? Is it the real value?
So we have a couple of good
Uh,
answers here. Udita is saying it
yeah,
changes every day. Arvind is saying market value depends on the mood of the market and can be overvalued or
absolutely. I think
undervalued.
Arvind's response is perfect, and so is Navdeep's response. The market gets impacted by the sentiment a lot, right? So what is the overall feeling in the market? What is the sentiment right now in the market? All these things can significantly impact the current market price or the value of a company, right? So in good times, even the bad companies will have a upward going share price, whereas in bad sentiment, even the good companies will have a downward sloping share price chart. The value of the company has not changed that much, but the sentiment has changed. What does the overall market participants feel, right? And that sentiment can significantly impact the market value of a stock, so it might not give a true picture. So guys, what to depend upon? The third measure is intrinsic value, guys. The third measure of the company is intrinsic value. So the first was based on the book, second was based on market sentiment, third one is based on the analyst, guys. Third one is based on the analyst. So this is the value as per the analyst. And this is where our equity research gets placed into the value matrix. So the analyst who is preparing the equity research report or who is doing the analysis of a public company, what he is trying to figure out is not the market value, not the book value, it is there. You can directly see the financials, or you can directly look at the exchange to get these values. What his purpose is, what kind of value he's trying to figure out, that is known as intrinsic value. This is the value as per the analyst. Not as per the books, not as per the market, as per that individual analyst, what should be the value of a company, that is known as intrinsic value. Right? So here we'll do the various methodologies, we'll analyze the business and find out what should be the value of the company as per our analysis, as per our estimates. And if we find out that the intrinsic value is much more than the current market price, what we'll do, we will say buy. If intrinsic value is less than the current market price, we'll say this stock is overvalued, this asset is overvalued, sell. So what we are doing, we are finding out the intrinsic value and then doing the decision making, then making our decision what to do. One method which you should know if you want to go for any equity research job profile is the discounted cash flow method, is DCF. As the name suggests, we are going to find out the cash flows and then we are going to discount them to find out the present value of those cash flows and what should be the value of a company per share. Now to reach to that point of finally finding out the cash flows and discounting them and finding the intrinsic value, we need to go through a lot of steps. Our final goal is to find the intrinsic value. But to reach to that point, first we need to figure out the revenue and cost that will help us in making the income statement. Similarly, we need to find out the asset schedule and balance sheet ratios. These will help us in preparing the forecast for the balance sheet. Now looking at the forecast of these two, we can do the linking from these two and prepare our cash flow statement. From the cash flow statement, we can figure out the free cash flows and then perform our DCF analysis to find out the intrinsic value. This is the most popular approach and followed extensively in almost all the cases, all the regions, all types of companies. But one thing we need to understand in DCF approach is that at every step, we are making the estimates. At every step, we are making the estimates. So revenue, balance sheet estimates, income statement estimates. All of these things will be based on estimates made by the analyst who is doing the research. So all this is based on the assumptions. Now it might happen that our assumptions are wrong, or estimates we make are the wrong estimates. So in that case, what we need to do? Can we just rely on this intrinsic value? See, in some of the cases, you will figure out that equity research report just ends here. They'll find out the intrinsic value, they will give you the recommendation, and that's it. But that's not a complete comprehensive approach. Here you have just depended on your estimates to be true, and you consider this as the true value of a company. Ideally, what we should do, we should complement or accompany our DCF analysis with relative valuation analysis also. So this is another technique, guys, relative valuation. Again, the aim is just to find out the value of a company, intrinsic value of a company, but this is a different approach of finding, different way of finding out the intrinsic value. So once we'll discuss both of them in detail, once we have the output from these two, then we can see, are we falling in a particular band, or is there a particular range we are looking at which relative valuation is also suggesting and DCF approach is also suggesting. This is acting as a double check or cross check for our DCF analysis. We might be grossly wrong while we are making the estimate, right? So if we are grossly wrong, relative valuation will tell us something else. And if it is significantly different, we can figure out that our analysis is lacking somewhere. All right. If they are referring, suppose DCF is referring the company as undervalued to some extent, and the relative valuation is also suggesting the same, then we can be more sure about our DCF analysis and say that this is what we have assumed is correct. Right. So it's always the best approach to accompany the DCF valuation with relative valuation and be double sure about your thesis, and also represent or show the output of your thesis through a measure known as football field. That is a type of visualization. Just you are showing the output of your DCF and relative valuation through graphs and charts. That is your football field. So guys, I believe that if we do these three, then it is a complete picture. Then we can be sure about the value we have found out, and we can also be confident about how we are presenting it. Right? So we are confident about our output also, and the formatting and display of our output. So our key focus areas in this program would be to find out, to use these popular methods, discounted cash flow. Also we'll do relative valuation, which I think is very important also to complement the DCF analysis. And we'll also do the final representation through a football field. That will give us the correct estimate as per both the methods, DCF as well as relative valuation. We'll be able to figure out a range which both the methods are suggesting should be the range of the value of a company. And then we can compare, this is our intrinsic estimate, guys, as per both the methods. Then we can compare it with the market price and give our recommendation or buy or sell the assets. Are you with me, guys? Is it clear so far?
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Any questions you have?
Anand, you had a question, right? Do you want to ask?
No, actually, sir said, "Is it clear?" So I said, "Yes, it's clear." Actually, that's what I said.
Cool. Cool.
Okay.
Thanks, Anand.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Um,
Hello.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Arvind Mathur. I just want to compliment all of you and Anshul. You know, you were very nice and very clear in your presentation. Your speed was very correct,
Thank you, Arvind.
and I think everybody was able to
Uh,
understand what you were trying to
Thanks
convey.
for the encouraging words. Means a lot, Arvind. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and keep. Are you a CFA or what?
Yes, yes. I have done all the 3 levels. So I'm a CFA charter holder. Yeah.
Where in which city?
Delhi, Delhi, India.
Good, good, very good. This is very nice.
Thank you for the kind word, sir. And let's just move on to the next this one because we needed to cover a lot. So thank you, Arvind, sir. Anshul, can we move on to the
Sure,
next?
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, guys. So we have on our plate DCF methodology, relative valuation, and football field, which we all need to cover comprehensively. Guys, starting with DCF, this is the first thing which we are going to do, discounted cash flows. And in that thing, more simple revenue estimate, cost estimate, income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, free cash flow, all that is doable, not a problem. But the problem or the challenge comes in the very first step itself, guys. First step is finding out the revenue estimates. So guys, right now I'm not talking about a specific company. We will actually do the whole equity research, all of these things for a actual public company, but that would take the discussion to a more specific company related to that company only. But we need to be broad in our thought process. So I'm just taking you through the whole process before we delve into a company and start discussing more specific things about the company. But as a general equity research analyst, we should be aware of the broad things as well. So as of now, I'm not going to a particular company and model. First, I want you to be very clear of what we are doing, why we are doing, and then we'll actually dive into it. So guys, in DCF methodology, first thing we need to do is revenue estimates. From revenue estimates, we can figure out the cost and income statement and move ahead. But how do we find out the revenue estimates? Any guesses, guys? You have the revenues till 2020, March 2020. You need to figure out March 2021 only, let's say. How will you go about it? Any guesses, guys? You pick any company. You pick any company, and you can suggest. I'll go like this. Guys, keep on thinking. Struggle with the idea, and then if I explain you, it will be more clear. See, there are multiple ways of doing it, guys. There is no right or wrong way. There is no easy or difficult way. There are multiple ways of doing it. For example, I am looking at a very small company. I'm looking at a very small company which has just 3-4 years of historical data. Okay, so I have 17, 18, 19, 20 data, and I need to figure out 21, 22, 23 data. Let's not even talk about data. Let's just talk about revenue. What will we do? What can we do? We don't have other details. It's a small public company, not disclosing much. We don't have anything for reference. We can't go by anything. We can just go by the recent financial data. So first way of revenue estimates is looking at the historical performance of the company. In this case, recent performance of the company. Right? And looking at the recent performance, I can make an estimate for the future.
Recent.
First, yeah.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah, sorry.
Anshul, okay, 1 second, Anand. Anshul, we have Emika from. Emika, are you from South Africa? So she said estimate growth using its historical revenue. And she also wanted to know one more question, that are we going to share the models in the course?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
To do that, we are going to work on a model parallelly
Okay.
on the same model. So we are going to definitely share the model.
Anand, you can ask.
That's what I'm saying, that I'm not going to the model straight away. We will do it, we can do it, but that will not give you the perspective of the whole thing. It will more be about numbers if we straight away go into that, right? So if we learn before that and then go into the model, you will be able to relate it better. Yes, Srishti.
Yes, I think Anand had some question. Anand?
Yeah, it was a very small question. Like as Sir said, we have to see the historical data, recent one. So, what exactly by the recent one? Like the last fiscal year, 12 months, or like 3 years data, or a 5 years data?
Right, Anand. So again, there is no hard and fast rule here. There is not an industry practice or a industry standard. We'll just look at 2 years or 3 years. Nothing to be. See, Anand, understand one thing. What we are trying to find out, what is the purpose of equity research? We are trying to find out intrinsic value. Agree? We discussed that.
Correct, sir.
And intrinsic value is the value based on the analyst. It is based on the individual analyst. So analyst will make the estimates or the assumptions as per him only. Na? There is no industry standard. Had there been any industry standard, suppose going by what you said, maybe let's say the rule is to take last 2 years only. Then everybody would take these 2 years. Everybody will calculate the intrinsic value and it might come out to be the same because we are following the rules.
Correct, sir.
And if that happens, everybody will think it is overvalued or undervalued. Everybody has the same answer. So for everybody, either the stock will be overvalued or the stock will be undervalued.
Correct, sir.
Will the market work? Market works when there is a seller for the buyer or there is a buyer for the seller.
That's true, sir. Yes.
So the market will not work. What we want is every analyst to make a different estimate for the intrinsic value. Somebody should feel that it's overvalued and somebody should feel that it is undervalued. Only then the market will work. And that can help. That can happen when every analyst is free to do the kind of analysis he wants to do. If we set the rules, then all the analysts will come out to have a same value and it will not be fruitful. Correct? So everything we are going to do in equity research, there are no hard and fast rules. Only thing, we should be very clear what we are doing, why we are doing. If somebody senior in our team asks us, our boss asks us, why have you done this, Anand? You should have a proper justification. Sir, I believe this, that's why I've done this. Nobody can say you are right or wrong. Sir, if you feel that it should be different, we can anyways update the model.
Okay, so it's just that my conclusion should have a backup support of my assumptions. What exactly I've done.
Exactly. It is up to the analyst.
All
What
right, sir.
estimate he is taking and what is his reasoning for taking that estimate.
All right, sir.
In this case, my reasoning is very simple. I don't have anything else to go by. You want me to do equity research for this company, which is just giving me 3-4 years data. I can just take reference of this data and estimate. Now I might take just last 2 years or last 3 years. If I don't find any exceptional values, I might just take last 4 years also. Correct.
Just to check out the transition if it is not there in the last 2 years.
Yes.
Okay, sir. Got it. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Isn't the industry growth also a proper estimate for future growth projections for revenue?
Okay. Good suggestion. Just a second. Industry growth. So guys, slightly lengthy topic we are going into. See, industry is made up of 10 players. Okay. Those 10 players will have some small players and some big players. Correct. This small player has a revenue of 1,000 and this big player has a revenue of 10 lakh. Okay. And I'm trying to estimate the next year revenue. Industry is growing at 5%. Do you think now 5% would be a fair estimate for both?
No, sir.
You got the answer, right?
Yes.
Correct. So this small company, maybe it is just present in Delhi right now. This company has a lot of growth potential. It can move to Bombay, it can move to Kolkata, it can move to Jaipur, it can move outside India, US, Europe, it can set up new factories, it can launch new products. It has a lot of growth prospects. So it might grow at more than 10-15%. Right? Whereas this big company has already done all this. Now it is just trying to capture more and more customers from these. So I cannot expect to grow this company as 10-15% on such a large base. Although they are from the same industry. And I know the industry growth also, but that is just hiding a lot of facts for a specific company. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So we looked at one of the methods of estimating the revenue. What can be the other method? What was the limitation of the first method? As the limitation was very clear in that method, it is just looking at the recent performance. Why is that a limitation? Because of the fact that our economy or our market works in cycles. Okay. So this is one cycle and this is my other cycle. This is for a economy. Now, this is our growth, guys. Okay. If we look at it, the economy always works in cycles, in the sense that there will be some good periods and there will be some bad periods. There will be some peaks, there will be some troughs. There'll be some expansion or there will be some contraction. There will be some recovery. So I can give it multiple names. You find out on the internet, everywhere you will find a different name. But I think the graph explains the thing very clearly. There is good period and there is bad period. It happens, right? Economy always finds a reason. For example, right now we are not showing growth. Forget about the growth. We are degrowing. It's a bad period. The reason is coronavirus. 10 years later, there'll be some war and the market will find a reason to cool off. 10 years back, the reason was housing bubble in 2008, and the market found the reason to correct itself. The economy will cool off. All right. So that means in the economy, we can always expect to have some good periods and bad periods. So it works in cycles. And guys, the usual length of the cycle is around 10-12 years. Sorry. Usual length of the cycle is around 10 to 12 years. For example, last time we had a bad period in 2008. Now we are having it in 2019-20. It's around 11 years, 12 years, right? Not exactly. Again, guys, don't think कि अगले next 12 years में फिर से कुछ ना कुछ हो जाएगा. It might happen after 8 years. It might happen after 13 years, 14 years. We don't know. Nobody can predict that, right? But usually it has been observed that cycle can vary from around 8 to 12 years. Okay, so now we might be here or we might be here. If I'm just looking at 2 years, then I'm looking at just a good period or a bad period. And if I'm forecasting based on that recent performance only, the recent period may be good period, and I'm assuming it will continue to be like that. But that is not true. We know that it will work in cycle. So just looking at the recent performance, making the forecast is not capturing the economic cycle concept which we know. Right? So what can we do? How can we capture the cycle? The second method is our looking at the performance during the whole cycle. So what I'll do, I'll look at last 8 to 10 years of the performance of the company, and I'll find out the compounded annual growth rate during the last economic cycle, or last 8 to 10 years or 12 years. I'll figure out over the whole cycle how the company has performed, not just the recent performance, over the whole cycle. What is the compounded annual growth rate? And from this, I can estimate that in the next cycle also, I believe the management will be able to grow the company at this annual growth rate. This is the growth rate, let's say 12%. They have been able to grow at this rate annually, considering both the good and bad times. So in the coming good and bad times also, they will be able to grow the company at this rate. That's a more realistic estimate, right? So this is our second method. Make sense, guys? Any questions? Okay. Coming to the third method of revenue estimates. till now method 1 and method 2 looked at total revenue. We did not break down our revenue into finer details. Third method we can use is we can break down our revenue as per the segments. So segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, and then make the estimates for those individual segments. Now this segmentation can be on the basis of geography. That means US, Europe, Asia, and then make the estimates for geography wise. Or we can also break down the revenue as per the product. Let's say iPhone, MacBook, iPad, and make the estimates for those products. So I'm not directly making an estimates for the revenue. I'm making it for the mix of the revenue. Might be by geography or might be by product. What this will allow us is, how is it better? Suppose I want to estimate that in US, the growth rate will be higher. That in US, the growth rate will be higher than Europe or Asia. And I want to incorporate that estimate into the model. If I'm taking the whole revenue together, then I'll not be able to incorporate that model into our, estimate into our model, because we don't have the split, we have the total revenue. Whereas in case if we are able to go in more details, then we can also incorporate those minor estimates into our model. Correct? But that would only be possible if the company is providing us these details. We
have a question from Navdeep.
Yeah.
He's saying that how can we estimate the revenue for segments?
Okay. So suppose you have US, Europe, or Asia segments, right? And you want to estimate. So now you have to analyze the regions or the company strategy. Where what is the strategy? Maybe the management is saying that in US we want to grow at 7%, or we are planning a major expansion in the US region. So then you can make an estimate that they are planning to expand significantly in the US region. So I can assume the whole company is growing at 5%, but for US region, I can assume I'll grow at 7% or 8%, depending on the size of the expansion they are planning. Whereas my other guess could be Europe is a saturated market maybe for that product. So I don't expect this market to perform, to grow at a higher pace. Whereas Asia is an under-penetrated market. A lot of customers are yet to buy these kind of products. So the growth rate here can be assumed to be more. This is just an example, guys. How can we make an estimate for different regions? Similarly for products also. Maybe we are seeing that iPhone is facing a lot of competition. The growth rate which it has shown historically may not be applicable for future. A lot of competitors are coming in, whereas MacBook may be gaining more popularity. You can analyze the products, guys, right? And based on that, you can make the estimates. What this method is giving us option is to incorporate the minor estimates we are going to make, maybe geography wise or maybe product wise. If we have any estimates, we know some estimates reasonably by our reasonable research, we can incorporate those estimates in that model if we have that split of the model or that detailed model with us. If we just have the total revenue, I cannot incorporate my estimate that US will go faster into the total revenue model easily. It will be very difficult. Whereas here it will be easy to incorporate. So guys, we looked at 3 of the methods, and we'll just wrap up with the 4th method also. The 4th method is the most detailed method, and if possible, we should try to go for that method because it captures a lot of things. It goes into minute details, and you can incorporate the minor estimates you have into the model very easily through this approach. So here we have revenue is equal to price into quantity. So looks simple, but we are talking about a lot of details here. In the sense, like let's take an example of a Maruti company. Guys, for those who are not aware, it's a auto company of India. It's the largest car manufacturer in India. Okay, it is into cars. So Maruti has a lot of products. Just to name a few, it has Alto car model, it has Baleno, it has Ignis, it has Brezza, it has others also. Let's just stick to 4 for now. It is into selling these cars. Now it might happen, it will happen is that the price and the quantity will be different for sorry, the price and the quantity will be different for each of the models. So what this will allow me, the breaking down to this level will allow me, even if I want to make an estimate of Baleno regarding the quantity of Baleno, I can incorporate that into the model. Right? So more and more of my minor assumptions are getting incorporated into the model. Right? So I'm not just looking at total revenue estimate directly. I am looking at minor details. Like I looked at the regional details, I look at the product details, and here I am looking at the price and quantity by product. Correct? It might be by geography also. For example, if Maruti operates in US and India, then what will be the average price of products in India and average quantity in India? Same in case of US. And you can go even more minute. Maruti hai Alto, India, US, Alto price in India, Alto quantity in India, Alto price in US, Alto quantity in India. So that depends upon the depth of research you want to do. Also depends upon the information which the company is providing. Maybe the company is not providing you this details. You cannot do this analysis. You cannot make up the details, right? So large company would usually provide you a lot of details. So if they are going so minutely into the details, as an analyst, we can also go into these details. Right? And guys, the company we are going to do, it's an IT company. It actually provides these details. So that's why I have picked that company where we can use all the things we are learning. Right? It might happen that you come across a small company and make a equity research of that in a very quick way, because if the company is not providing all these details, then you don't need to worry about making an estimates for these, and you can just quickly make the estimates and do the equity research report. But we'll go through a slightly detailed company and slightly detailed model so that you can easily take care of small and easy models after doing that detailed model. Right, and this thing can be applied. This is very useful. I mean, this can be applied to a lot of scenarios. For example, here we just saw Maruti example. It is into different cars. We can also apply it to any other industry. If you want to give me an industry, I can try on that. Otherwise, I'll take just from my reference. Okay, for example, let's say telecom company. Let's say Bharti Airtel. All right. So if we want to estimate, make estimates for Bharti Airtel, how can we apply this fourth approach of revenue is equal to price into quantity? We can apply this approach through looking at the various segments this company is operating into. So Bharti Airtel is a telecom company of India, which is into broadband. It is also into DTH. It is also into mobile SIM cards and mobile network. Now within these, we can find out what is the average revenue per user, average billing per user into number of subscribers. So this will become our price and this will become our quantity. Same here, same here. Right, and then we can also incorporate these estimates also if we have specific estimates, or we can have a general estimate. Okay, this can be applied to any, for example, let's say a pharma company. Pharma company is making a diabetes drug. What will be the price of that diabetes drug? What will be the quantity? Now, within these price and quantity also, you can go into a lot of depth. For example, just to find the quantity for diabetes drug for this company, I can go into a lot of depth. For example, this company operates in US. This will be the population estimates for US population. This will be the diabetic. These many people will be diagnosed with diabetes. These many will take drugs. These many will take the drugs of competitors. These many will take the drugs of my company. So this becomes the quantity for my company. Right? So there is no limit to how much depth we can go into. What we should know is that very rarely will the equity research teams go into that much depth. Maybe for an initiating coverage report, they will go for it. But in general, they don't go for that much depth because there is a cost-benefit analysis there. Right? By just publishing one report, they cannot expect too much revenue to be generated. Right? So they have an estimate of the benefit they are going to get by publishing a research report. Now they don't want to incur more costs than the benefit they are getting. The cost can be in terms of time, money, and resources. Okay. So they don't want to spend too much cost in terms of time, money, and resources. At least not that much that benefits are less than the cost. Right. So all these things will determine how much depth we are going into, not only how much the company is providing information, but who is doing equity research, what is the budget, what is the timeline to prepare the equity research. All those things will determine how much depth we are going into. Right, but you understand that there is a lot of depth which we can actually go into, and sometimes we do come across something like this where we have gone that much into the depth, but usually it will not be the case. Especially as someone entering into this field or want to enter into this field as a fresher into the field, that much details are not required or not expected from the fresher. But anyways, we'll do a detailed model in which we'll try to incorporate most of the things here. Okay. So, has anybody analyzed any project before? Any? Okay. I think we can skip that for now.
Anshul, what kind of projects are we asking here?
What kind of projects? Okay.
Yeah.
I was asking maybe the company wants to set up a factory, or maybe the entrepreneur is looking for a business for 5-10 years. And I wanted that to compare that to how will you analyze a company. So how do you analyze a project versus how do you analyze a company? But because that's slightly different, if not everybody is comfortable, then we can skip that. I think. So guys, I think the overdue part is I've almost covered it. What I wanted to discuss. So what I want to do now is I want to show you the glimpse of the model which we are going to work upon. So guys, this is the model which we have and which we'll work upon. It is a very detailed model, guys. You can look at the data we have for the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, all the methods we have for the revenue estimates. Then we have other methods for revenue estimates. Guys, this is very detailed model. All right, and how we'll find out the cost drivers, revenue drivers, how we'll find out the asset schedule. So just wanted to give you a glimpse of the model which we are going to work upon from the very next class itself. We'll get into the building the model. It takes a lot of time. So we'll spend a lot of time on this model. It's a very detailed model, guys. Whatever we are learning will get incorporated into this model. We have around 10-12 years of data, including forecast also. We have a lot of methods for revenue drivers. We have very detailed price into quantity model for this company also. So, for example, you can see that this is just for the revenue part of the company, this whole thing. It's very detailed, guys. Then we have the cost drivers. How do we estimate the cost? Using that, we'll make the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement. We'll also make the asset schedule. We will have the DCF methodology then, where we'll see how to calculate WACC, how to find out the intrinsic value through DCF methodology. And we'll also do relative valuation, guys, to accompany the DCF methodology. And we'll find out the value through both of these techniques. And after the finding out the value from both of these techniques, we'll also create the football field. Okay, so right now the football field chart is not with me, but we will definitely be doing that to show the output. All right, so just wanted to give you an idea, heads up as to what what we'll be all doing in this course. And after this model, I can assure you that you will be very comfortable in dealing with any kind of template or going for equity research for any other company.